The narrative commences with Jack Harper, a man who frequently experienced recurring dreams about a woman whose identity he couldn't completely recall. It had been 5 years since the obligatory erasure of his memory, yet those fragments lingered in his mind, haunting him persistently. Once a NASA commander, Harper now worked as a drone technician. He shared his life with Victoria Olsen on a space platform where both individuals had been designated. It was the year 2077. 50 years had passed since the scavengers destroyed the moon, an event that propelled Earth into disarray. As a result, Earth was ravaged and subsequently suffered an extraterrestrial invasion. Even though humanity successfully managed to secure victory in the war through the strategic deployment of nuclear weaponry, this left the planet severely contaminated and nearly entirely uninhabitable. In this dire situation, humans were compelled to abandon it and now reside in a temporary space station known as TET, while they await the eventual migration to Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Jack and Victoria operate as drone maintenance technicians stationed on Earth, consistently overseeing the operational platforms. Jack conducts daily patrols aboard a spacecraft, diligently supervising the functionality of these drones, which are absolutely crucial for the safeguarding of the energy generators known as hydro platforms. Their primary objective is to avert potential assaults from the scavengers who, for reasons that remain unknown, have not entirely halted their resistance. Jack consistently maintains communication with his superior stationed on the TET, relaying detailed reports on his progress with the assistance of Victoria. While she yearns to successfully complete the mission and reunite with the rest of humanity, Jack feels that, despite everything, Earth remains his true home. One morning, during a routine patrol, Jack ventures out to repair 2 fallen drones, which were apparently damaged after a possible assault by the scavengers. These drones played a crucial role in guaranteeing the safeguarding of the platforms during the nighttime hours, so they couldn't be left non-functional. On that specific day, a severe storm made communications and visibility exceptionally challenging. Consequently, Victoria couldn't accurately track Jack's location while he encountered significant difficulties maneuvering his ship amidst the intense lightning and torrential downpour. Upon reaching the designated location, Jack initiates the process of repairing Probe 166, completely unaware that he is being observed from afar by extraterrestrial beings. As he works, he engages in a conversation with Victoria about the most recent Super Bowl that occurred on that very field, reminiscing about a fragment of Earth's history. After successfully completing the repair, Jack senses a nearby presence and briefly suspects it could potentially be a threat. However, he soon discovers that it is merely a dog. To prevent the probe from potentially attacking the animal, Jack discharges a shot into the air to frighten it away. The probe, in response, meticulously scans the entire surroundings and, finding no anomalies present, promptly departs. Jack embarks on a mission to locate the second probe, opting this time to traverse by land. However, the device fails to emit any signal, rendering it quite challenging to pinpoint its location. Ultimately, he is guided to a sinkhole, which he must descend into to proceed with the search. Inside, he discovers the remains of an ancient library, now reduced to rubble. Guided only by the sound supposedly coming from the probe, he proceeds cautiously. However, upon reaching the source of the noise, he realizes that it is not the real probe, but a recording used as a decoy. There he realizes that the scavengers have set a trap for him. Just as he attempts to retreat, his foot becomes ensnared in a trap and he is forcibly dragged into the building. Jack struggles with all his might until he successfully frees himself. Without wasting any time, he navigates through the collapsed shelves and tables in a frantic attempt to escape. Nevertheless, the scavengers have taken away the beam he had previously crossed, compelling him to make a perilous leap to reach the opposite side. At the very last moment, he successfully manages to grasp hold, preventing himself from plummeting into the abyss. He swiftly attaches himself to his harness to climb upwards, but before he can secure his safety, it detonates, causing him to tumble once more. At that crucial moment, Probe 166 arrives to provide assistance, eliminating the scavengers and enabling Jack to regain his freedom. Once out of the pit, he realizes that his motorcycle has also been taken, compelling him to return on foot. Back at the base, Jack reviews a book he brought with him, a collection of ancient Roman chants. Later, while having dinner, he expresses to Victoria his concern about what happened, pointing out that the scavengers did not try to kill him. Rather, they seemed to have the intention of capturing him. In order to ease the tension and change the atmosphere, Victoria invites him to swim in the pool. In that tranquil space, they shared an intimate moment. While they were sleeping, a loud explosion echoed throughout the station, waking them up abruptly. One of the platforms had been blown to pieces. Determined to uncover the cause of the incident, Jack embarks on an investigative mission to report what happened to the TET. During the process, he discovers that the scavengers had placed a bomb in the water with the intention that it would be absorbed by the hydrogenerator, which would cause the explosion. Suddenly, Jack receives a radio signal, but upon investigating, he realizes it does not come from the TT. Intrigued, he decides to follow the signal to discover its origin. The man realizes that the scavengers have been using the Empire State Antenna to transmit coordinates into outer space regarding a specific location on Earth. Upon investigating the location, Victoria is unable to find anything at the coordinates, which heightens the suspicion about the situation. Faced with the uncertainty, Jack decides to take drastic measures and cut the device to disrupt the communication. With one less worry, Jack decides to take a leisurely stroll and returns to a quaint little cabin nestled in the woods, which he had meticulously prepared with all the essentials needed to live. As he reclines on the soft grass, he briefly drifts into slumber. In his dream, he experiences a profound connection with that place from the past, vividly recalling the scene with the woman who had appeared in his dreams. On this occasion, he once more sees that woman, who addresses him by his full name, startling him and causing him to awaken immediately. Abruptly, an explosion on the distant horizon and the loud sound of a ship interrupt his rest. Believing it to be the destruction of yet another oil platform, Jack hastily rushes to investigate the situation. From the TET, the directive is issued for the drones to manage the situation. However, he desires to ensure there is no hidden threat. Upon his arrival, he uncovers that there are humans in hibernation chambers situated precisely where the signal was being transmitted from. Unexpectedly, the capsules are assaulted by the drone, which upon detecting Jack's presence, withdraws. In that scenario, Jack rescues Yulia Rusakova, who turns out to be the woman who appeared in his dreams. Yulia was traveling aboard the spacecraft Odyssey, which had been in orbit for over 60 years before crashing to Earth. In a time before the war, Jack takes her to the base, and together with Victoria, they manage to get her out of the capsule. At first, Julia is dismayed by the overwhelming amount of information she receives, but she soon begins to get used to the new reality. Julia articulates her aspiration to restore the ship's black box to uncover the events that transpired, and under Victoria's careful supervision and in Jack's presence, they set out on the mission. Collectively, they succeed in retrieving the black box, but they are intercepted and captured by the scavengers, who render them unconscious and transport them to their headquarters. Jack's vessel was programmed to automatically return to the platform whenever a similar situation arose, so Victoria, upon realizing the circumstances, attempted to prevent the director of TET from discovering anything about Julia and the black box. To Jack's astonishment, he uncovers that the scavengers are in fact humans. The leader of the scavengers inquires about what he is searching for in the ancient books, reciting the identical poem that Jack had previously read, suggesting that it was not a mere coincidence he discovered that particular book. They inquire whether he had ever observed the scavengers from a close distance, as they were indeed all humans. They elaborate that the drones had been eliminating humans and further question him regarding the restricted zones, asking if he had ever ventured there, or if he had paused to contemplate what was truly occurring on the other side. Meanwhile, Victoria had sent a drone to search for Jack, under the supervision of the TET agent. The agent asks her if she has a good relationship with Jack, to which Victoria, forcing her response, assures that everything is in optimal condition. Underground, the scavengers reveal to Jack that they were the ones who shot down the Odyssey and that they also have the missing drone in their possession. They request his assistance to modify it with a nuclear device, as Jack is the sole individual who possesses comprehensive knowledge of this technology. The group's intention is to annihilate the TET, but Jack declines, as he is aware that numerous individuals reside there. This infuriates the general, who menaces them with the threat of force while aiming a firearm at them, prepared to fire. The situation is suddenly interrupted by a security alarm, as Victoria's drone had carefully followed Jack's path to his current spot. In response, agents quickly moved to take down the drone. Seeing it was disconnected, Victoria urgently asked for permission to send more drones to that location, determined to find Jack. Below, the scavengers were also aware that reinforcements would persistently arrive until they located the man, so time was becoming progressively limited. They released Jack and his companion, returning his motorcycle and supplying him with a crucial piece of information. If he was seeking answers, he would discover them in the restricted area, where it was believed that the radiation levels were elevated. The other agents could not comprehend why they were risking exposing everything to Jack, but the leader was confident he would be different because Julia had faith in him. After traveling several miles, the vehicle depleted its fuel, compelling them to proceed on foot to the Empire State. Once there, Jack transmitted a signal to Victoria to notify her that he had reached safely. She cancelled the search and, feeling relieved, dispatched the ship for their rescue operation. Jack seized the opportunity of the privacy to inquire with Julia about her actual mission and the underlying reason she was aboard the Odyssey. She elaborated that she was a member of the team designated to explore Titan.
I'm over you, the chains gone, I'm broken through 1,000 nights, I'm born anew. The past is dead, I'm over you. to the void. Our love once bright.
But their mission was redirected upon detecting a strange object approaching. Thus, their new mission was to investigate this unidentified body, which turned out to be none other than what is now the Ted. Jack goes into crisis and tells her it's impossible, demanding that she tell him who she was. With melancholy, Julia only whispers to him that she is his wife. All those dreams he had were his memories trying to return to him. He had arranged to meet Julia that day to go up to the Empire State's Observatory. Upon arriving, he proposed, confidently assuring her he'd reveal the future while presenting a ring. She, feeling joyful and thrilled, accepted. The ship reached its destination, but through surveillance cameras, Victoria observed the intimate interaction between Jack and Julia, which shattered her. When they returned to the base, it refused to let them in, despite Jack's explanations. Without further ado, Victoria reported the situation to Ted, claiming that the subject was no longer fit for the mission and that she had found a survivor in the crash area. Jack asked her why she had done that, to which she replied that she only wanted to go to Titan with the others. Jack told her that Titan didn't exist and that they had been lied to. Victoria simply asked him to stay away from her. A drone located at the base was activated. This was a hunting mechanism designed specifically for agents who strayed from the established protocol. As it entered suddenly, sweeping everything in its path, it fired at Jack but also ended up killing Victoria. Julia, who remained on the ship, fired at the drone, successfully disabling it and thereby eliminating the threat. Through the control console, they communicated with the TET agent, who informed them that they both needed to board the space station and that the mission on Earth could conclude there. Jack, now understanding the entire truth, decides that the most prudent course of action is to flee, so he escapes with his companion. Additional drones were dispatched in pursuit of them. Our main character attempts to evade them within the storm, but it turns out to be unfeasible, so he opts to utilize the lightning to his benefit, which temporarily incapacitates the ships. Subsequently, on the precipice, he triggers some rocks to tumble onto one of the drones, obliterating it. Another drone is taken out by gunfire, and the final one, which had been relentlessly chasing them, becomes destabilized and collides with their own vessel, causing them to crash. Fortunately, they came out unscathed from the attack. Now their main concern was that they were stranded in the middle of the desert. Jack asked Julia to stay in what was left of the ship while he looked for a way to get out of there. Suddenly, a spacecraft lands near the crashed drone, deeply unsettling Jack, as these spacecrafts were only linked to the TET. In the distance, through the broken scope of his weapon, he spots someone moving toward the artifact. Curious, he runs toward her, urging her to stop. Face to face, Jack comes to the realization that it's actually himself. The AG directs a weapon at him and demands that he drop his own, so Jack, surrendering to him, complies. Julia appears and requests them to cease their actions. This distraction proves advantageous for Jack, who subdues his other self and chokes him until he is unconscious. While they were fighting, Julia realizes that due to the crash, she had suffered a severe abdominal injury and had been losing a lot of blood, which causes her to faint. Jack notices what happened and rushes to her aid, taking her to a safe place. Before leaving to find something to help her, he notices something curious about the ship. The pilot number is different, which leads him to cross the border and be guided to another base where another victory awaited him. This discovery surprises him greatly, as he didn't fully understand what was happening. He excuses himself to Victoria, claiming he must leave quickly, and manages to slip away without much trouble. With a special device he had taken from the base, he heals Julia's wounds and takes her to his cabin in the woods. There he confesses that he might not be the original Jack. However, he reveals that he holds memories of her and assures her that he has always loved her. Julia laughs at the situation and tells him that before everything turned into chaos, he had promised to build a cabin by the lake where they would live together, spend their old age, and when they finally died, they would be buried by the lake. Jack expresses regret that he doesn't remember any of that, but Julia reassures him, saying that those memories are what make him who he is. The following morning, Jack prepares himself to depart. Julia inquires if they wouldn't remain there, but he reminds her that the scavengers still require their assistance. At the scavengers' base, they find themselves ambushed and held at gunpoint. The leader approaches and informs him that if he had described what he would witness on the other side, he would have considered him insane. The man introduces himself as Malcolm and extends an invitation for them to enter once more. Jack, resolute in his determination to execute the mission no matter the cost, consented to modify the drone for the impending attack. In the meantime, Malcolm, during a moment of profound contemplation, began recounting his own personal experiences prior to the arrival of the Tet. He elaborated that he had only been serving in the military for just a year when it arrived. He vividly remembered how, in a devastating assault, the moon was completely obliterated, an event that had catastrophic repercussions on Earth. The colossal waves, unforeseen earthquakes, and widespread famine were merely a few of the terrifying events that ensued after that catastrophic destruction. Subsequently, the ships arrived, filled with thousands of cloned soldiers of Jack and Victoria. These soldiers, devoid of memory and understanding of their genuine purpose, were assigned a singular mission: to annihilate the scavengers, who were, in reality, the surviving humans. The Tet relentlessly sought to consume one planet after another in its insatiable quest for energy, exploiting its own inhabitants to its advantage. Half a century had elapsed since the platforms commenced extracting Earth's precious water, until eventually, one of the soldiers chose to heed the humans. On this occasion, he approached Jack, reminding him of the book he had taken during that time. Malcolm believed he had discovered a potential escape route when he observed Jack positioning himself between the probe and Julia's cryogenic capsule. It was precisely at that moment he comprehended that Jack genuinely cared about the lives of others and what remained on Earth. They successfully managed to reprogram the drone, yet when it was activated, it commenced to behave in a hostile manner. Jack requested everyone to take a step back and reassured them that they need not worry. With unwavering determination, he carefully approached the drone as though it were a wild creature, and upon making contact with it, it eventually settled down while observing the surrounding crowd. Malcolm, brimming with eagerness and determination, longed to be there in person to witness the expression of whatever resided within the Tet when the weapon obliterated its base. Upon retrieving the weapon from its concealed hiding place, the Tet drone suddenly appeared and penetrated the hideout. Jack urgently requested that they flee, and together they began shooting at the machines, which had already claimed numerous lives. The drones moved with precise accuracy, firing in all directions and mowing down anyone unfortunate enough to be in their path. Julia sprinted alongside the others in search of refuge, but one of the relentless machines was closely tailing them. When they found themselves cornered, the drone targeted each of them. However, before it could unleash its firepower, it plummeted to the ground after being effectively disabled by the general. They successfully managed to destroy the other two drones, liberating themselves from the immediate threat, but there were numerous injuries sustained. Malcolm requests Jack to dispatch the probe at any cost. However, they had misplaced it during the chaos of the battle. Our protagonist, fully aware of the significant risks involved, chooses to assume the responsibility of transporting the bomb himself, despite the impending danger this action entails. His unwavering determination propels him to advance with the plan. However, Julia, upon discovering his decision, informs him that she will accompany him as well. She elaborates that according to the instructions he had received, she was requested to be transported, and therefore her involvement is crucial in this process. Consequently, they resolve to return her to the cryogenic chamber together with the bomb. Already aboard the ship and en route to the Tet, Jack, in an effort to gain a deeper understanding of the situation, listens attentively to the recording from the Odyssey's black box. Upon careful listening, he uncovers a startling revelation. He had been the original captain of that mission, with Victoria acting as the co-pilot, and the individual who initially provided them with instructions from Earth is the same person presently directing their actions from the Tet base, which raises questions about the intentions and control behind the entire mission. They had lost all communication with Earth, and the ship was experiencing difficulties that endangered the lives of the entire crew. Considering the gravity of the situation and the urgent necessity to make swift decisions, they concluded that the most prudent course of action was to deploy the capsule containing the cryogenically preserved crew, with the hope that at the very least they might be able to preserve their lives. Consequently, due to this decision, only the two pilots were the individuals who embarked on the alien spacecraft. The recording was unexpectedly interrupted at that particular moment, leaving Jack with an overwhelming sense of uncertainty and confusion. Within the confines of the spacecraft, the supposed agent informs Jack that she has detected irregularities in his heart rate, which significantly heightens her suspicion regarding the visitor's true intentions. In light of this revelation, the agent firmly demands that he disclose the authentic reason for his presence there. Jack, visibly disturbed by the gravity of the situation, pauses momentarily, contemplating the potential repercussions of his confession. Nevertheless, after a short period of reflection, he resolves to be truthful and acknowledges that his intention is solely to avert the extinction of his species, an impending threat that has driven humanity to the edge of vanishing. Upon hearing these words, the agent accepts his explanation. As Jack moves through the interior of the ship, a terrifying vision unfolds before him. Thousands of clones, bodies identical to Victoria's and his own, fill the space, causing him an indescribable sense of bewilderment and terror. Finally, the encounter arrives with the entity that has been responsible for the creation and manipulation of these replicas. It is a kind of intelligent machine whose presence seems to encompass the entire ship. In front of it, Jack confidently begins to talk about ancient Rome, now non-existent, and recites the poem he had read, emphasizing firmly that death is an inevitable fate for everyone. The entity, which seems to perceive every word, responds that Julia will not perish. However, Jack without hesitation replies that everyone will, but what truly matters is to do it well. Upon opening the capsule, we discover that inside is not Julia, but Malcolm. In an act of strategy and sacrifice, they had exchanged the capsules to ensure Julia's safety, keeping her away from danger. In front of them, the entity, confident in its supremacy, warns them that no effort will be enough to defeat it, for it is now their god and its power is absolute. Nevertheless, Jack and Malcolm, resolute in their determination to fulfill their mission, recite the concluding lines of the poem, reaffirming their unwavering conviction that death is indeed inevitable. With this certainty, they activate the nuclear bomb, initiating a catastrophic explosion that utterly consumes the ship, along with the entity that had menaced humanity. The drones, which up until that point had been sowing terror across Earth, were abruptly deactivated. The looming threat that had kept humanity in a state of constant flight and fear vanished in an instant. Meanwhile, the survivors, initially incredulous, gazed upward to the sky and witnessed an awe-inspiring spectacle, the explosion of the enemy ship brilliantly illuminating the sky. The oppression had finally come to a complete end. For the very first time in a long while, they were genuinely free. 3 entire years have passed since that decisive day, 3 years since the war and since the loss of Jack. Life on Earth has continued its natural course, and Julia, now a devoted mother, has found a safe refuge in the cozy cabin she once shared with him. Together with her beloved daughter, she has built the simple and peaceful life she always dreamed of. Jack wonders if Julia still thinks of him when she gazes at her daughter, and above all, if she has found the happiness she so longed for. The little girl, who had been playing quietly, raised her hand and pointed to the other side of the lake. In the distance, Julia saw a child accompanied by a group of people. At the end of the group appeared a figure that seemed familiar to them. It was indeed Jack, the very same individual who had collapsed into unconsciousness in the desert on that ill-fated day when they traversed the border. With a resolute voice, he articulated that they all possessed shared memories and emotions, and that he had experienced an overwhelming urge to return to his home, a place he had been relentlessly searching for over the past 3 years. That's how the movie ends.